Today's episode of Luthorville will answer the question, why not just buy a house in LA?
No one can afford a house in Los Angeles unless they're a movie star. See, here's the dilemma facing job seekers and homeowners in the Mojave and the Los Angeles basin. In short, there are no jobs in the Mojave, but
cheap housing.
The housing is affordable.
Yeah.
Now, there are a ton of jobs in Los Angeles, but no one can afford a house. See, there are basically 4 types of homes that you can buy.
Mobile homes, also known as manufactured homes. Motor homes, also known as recreational vehicles or RVs. Condominiums, and single-family houses.
So let's take a look at each one of those. First, we have mobile homes, also known as manufactured homes. Now, there are a few mobile home communities in Los Angeles, and you can find mobile homes for fairly cheap. The problem with mobile homes is that you still have to pay rent for the plot of land. You own the house, but you never own the land your house is sitting upon. So you can buy a $90,000 mobile home, but you still pay $1,200 a month in rent for the rest of your life. I carefully considered such options in Sylmar and out near Ojai, but really, it's more expensive than having an apartment because you're paying a mortgage on your house and
rent.
Paying rent for the rest of your life. That's just not a wise investment.
Doesn't sound like it. So secondly, we have motorhomes, and actually the exact same thing applies to motorhomes and RVs as to a mobile home. Namely, you must have a location to legally park your motorhome, and the only place you can do that permanently in California is an RV park, which tends to charge fairly high rent. In fact, Eric was actually tempted to purchase a Thor Outlaw 37 LS Class A motorhome that actually has a garage, which could hold your motorcycle.
Yes.
Perhaps if you were making enough income from your novels or you had a telecommuting job, then driving around to free campsites and inexpensive RV parks would be worth it. But it's simply not feasible to live that way when working an office job in Los Angeles. Most free campsites on government land require that you can only stay for a maximum of 14 days.
To quote the Bureau of Land Management website, dispersed camping is allowed on public lands in California for a period not to exceed 14 days within any period of 28 consecutive days. The 28-day period begins when a camper initially occupies a specific location on public lands. The 14-day limit may be reached either through a number of separate visits or through 14 days of continuous overnight occupation during the 28-day period. After the 14th day of occupation, the camper must move outside of a 25-mile radius of the previous location until the 29th day since the initial occupation. Now, the purpose of this special rule is to prevent damage to sensitive resources caused by continual use of any particular areas.
The problem is most land with those sorts of regulations is located more than 2 hours outside of Los Angeles, and a huge percentage of it also happens to be sections of land that are quite literally in the middle of mountain ranges with no roads. So not exactly the most ideal location to park a 37-foot motorhome. Consequently, a motorhome doesn't seem like a very wise investment. So why not just rent an apartment?
Right. So the third option, condominiums. Now, most condos, which is an abbreviation for condominiums for the little kids in the audience, in Los Angeles are at least $300,000. Now, condominiums provide the identical problem to a mobile home. Condos always have a homeowners association, or HOA, which charges monthly fees that can vary just as much as rent. Now, as you pay off your condo mortgage, you might still be paying $1,000 a month in HOA fees. So again, what is the point? On top of your mortgage payments, you're shelling out what amounts to an endless rent as long as you live there.
Which leaves us with the fourth option to buy a house in Los Angeles County. You can't buy a decent single-family house in Antelope Valley for under $200,000. If you want a house in Los Angeles, the cheapest single-family homes start around $400,000. In other parts of the country, a nice home in a good neighborhood can cost $100,000. In Los Angeles, $400,000 gets you a crumbling ranch with bars on the windows in a questionable neighborhood. Think about that. The cheapest single-family homes in Los Angeles are close to $500,000. That means if you put down $40,000 at 5% interest over 30 years, your house payments are almost $2,400 a month.
In fact, I know a couple who recently bought a very humble house in Burbank for $600,000. Now, if they put down $60,000, their mortgage over 30 years is still around $3,500 a month. That's insane. That means if you worked a job making $21 an hour, every penny you earn would go to your house payment. You'd have nothing left over. No money for food or utilities or anything.
I think we call that house poor. You could buy land in Los Angeles, but if you spend anything under $300,000, you will be buying a tenth of an acre on a cliff.
Yeah.
Once land becomes so expensive, what's the point? Building your own house will cost far more than buying an existing one. Believe it or not, we actually found one plot of land selling for $50,000 that was literally a mountainside beyond two ridges with no roads leading in. In effect, it was $50,000 worth of land that you could never even hike to.
Yeah. I mean, I could have purchased land, 30 miles closer to town, which would have cost 5 times as much money, and only been 1/5 the size, and is located almost directly on top of the San Andreas Fault.
Eee.
Yeah, that didn't seem very wise either. So as you can see, I've thought about this a lot. I've spent months thinking this over and researching my options, and I have very carefully considered every alternative and contingency I could imagine. Owning a house is the only economically rational option. Perpetually renting is illogical. Now, since buying a home in Los Angeles County is far too expensive and land is overpriced, my only solution was to buy a house on inexpensive desert land. When you really start to break down the economic investment versus the advantages and disadvantages, suddenly my crazy idea isn't so crazy after all.
Buying 10 acres of pristine desert land and building a humble $150,000 house stocked with $60,000 worth of off-grid technology becomes a very sensible thing. For the price of a condo in Los Angeles, he can own 10 gorgeous acres of a vast wilderness landscape, a house with no utility bills, and still have about $50,000 left over. So there is indeed a method to his madness. There isn't an irrational... This isn't an irrational plan. Galatea Meridian is completely logical and prudent.
Mm-hmm. At least I think so.
Remains to be seen.
Luthorville is an educational series inspiring kids and adults to become excited about innovations in science and technology by documenting the design and construction of a Mojave Desert homestead called Galatea Meridian. Witness the crazy story of how Eric Muss-Barnes, an unemployed computer geek and struggling novelist, risks homelessness by spending most of his life savings to build an off-grid dream house in the middle of nowhere. Having purchased vast acres of the Old West, can Eric find a stable job and create his home before his money runs out? Take a journey where fortitude and a pioneering spirit continue to forge the American dream on the romantic landscape of the American frontier.
Thank you for watching this latest episode of Luthorville.
And please be sure to share with all your family and friends.
And remember, if your ambitions don't scare you,
They aren't big enough.